Hey, what's going on guys? My name is Justin Loria, and today we're going to be going over 8 things that you can do to add more style to your skateboarding. So I'm sure that we can all agree that one of the best things about skateboarding is it gives us the ability to take a break from all of the mundane occurrences that happen in our everyday lives and gives us the ability to just get on our boards and cruise through the city or the park in an effortless, almost meditative flow. It helps our confidence level a lot to know that the techniques we've developed on our boards not only help us move in an efficient way, but that they also help us look good while we're doing it. So to that end, let's get started with the first item up on our list, which is stomping all your tricks down on the bolts. Whenever you land on your board from a height, these bolts right here, the ones that hold the trucks onto the deck, are not only going to be the most stable spot for your feet to land, but it's also going to be the strongest part of the board. So whenever you're coming down, always try to make sure that you land with both feet right over top of the bolts. If you land with your feet in the middle of the board or on the nose or the tail, not only are you going to be risking possibly snapping your board whenever you land, but you're also going to find it hard to keep your balance and roll away with any kind of consistency. Plus, whenever you stomp your tricks down on the bolts every single time, it shows that you have the precision and control necessary to put your board and your feet exactly where you want to. For number 2, I want you to develop a way of setting up for your tricks that avoids a lot of awkward and unnecessary shuffling of your feet. So rather than setting up for your normal stance tricks like this, or setting up for your next nollie trick like this, practice using just one foot at a time to balance on the board while you put your other foot all the way into position, whichever one is going to stay in the middle part of the board, and then intentionally place your popping foot onto the nose or the tail like this. 1 or 2 small final adjustments right before you pop your trick usually still looks pretty cool, but if you use this technique to get your feet mostly into position beforehand, it's going to help you get there faster, and it's going to look a lot better than trying to wiggle your feet all the way there from your basic riding stance. Now for number 3, I want to start off by showing you 2 clips, and I want you to decide which one you think looks better. Now I think we can all agree that the second clip looked a lot more stylish, and the reason for that had to do with the speed that I was going when I popped the trick. So whenever you unlock a new trick and you're able to just barely land it for your first time, don't stop practicing right there. Instead of making your goal when you're learning a new trick to just get a single make however you can do it, stick with the training a little bit longer and continue to develop your mastery of the trick until you're able to do it cleanly and at a fair amount of speed. Not only is this going to simulate how you're going to be doing the trick more often than otherwise in the future, adding in the extra repetitions that it takes to get to that point is only going to increase your ability to do the trick more and more consistently. For number 4, I want you to develop a level of comfort on your board that will allow you to avoid having to stare down at your feet the entire time whenever you're riding and doing tricks. Almost all skateboarders, even at the top tier, will look down at their boards momentarily whenever they pop and execute a trick, but other than that, you should be able to kind of feel where the board is underneath you just using your feet, and then that'll allow you to free up your vision to pick your head up and kind of look around you and see where you're headed and what's going on around you. So in my opinion, one of the best ways to develop this skill would be to just take 10 minutes or so at the start of your next few skate sessions and run through your favorite lines over and over again, each time trying to get a little faster and a little more comfortable on your board. Now, obviously at high speeds, the risk for injury is also going to increase, so as usual, take the proper precautions to skate within your abilities and wear your protective gear. For number 5, I want to talk about something that plagued me personally for the first few years after I started skateboarding, mainly because I didn't film myself skating enough in order to notice it, but it's that in addition to training your legs how to do skateboard tricks, you also have to take into account what your arms are doing. So what I mean by that is when I first started skating, every time I would go to do a trick, my mind was so focused on making sure that the board was doing the right thing that my arms would just flail up into the air and start doing all kinds of crazy motions, and it ultimately led to my first few skate clips looking a little less satisfactory than what I was going for. Once I finally noticed what I was doing, I started to keep an eye on what all parts of my body were doing rather than just focusing on my legs, even to the point where I would sometimes have to skate with my hands in my pockets for a while just to get my brain to remember not to let my arms flail up and to make the connection that it needed to control all of my limbs at once while I was doing tricks. Alright, so now let's move on to number 6, which is paying attention to how you're doing tricks rather than just that you're doing them at all. Now obviously, whenever you're working on landing a new trick for the very first time, it doesn't really matter all that much whether or not every little thing about it was executed perfectly. You just want to get a make however you can get it. But once you get past that point, you can start to worry about some of the more nitpicky things about the trick. Like, did the board rotate all the way around before it landed? Did the board hit the ground before your feet hit the board? Did you have to do a tic-tac at the end because you landed a little bit off balance? One of the easiest ways you can see some of the problems you're having with a trick is to film yourself doing it a few times and then watch your attempts back in slow motion. Once you're able to identify the things that keep happening whenever you try the trick that you don't like, go back and try to correct each thing one at a time until you have the whole trick looking the way you want it. For number 7, one way you can get a lot of bang for your buck is simply learning how to add a little bit of style to the things you do most often. And in skateboarding, that's getting on and getting off of your board. So to get your creative juices flowing, here are a few of my favorite ways to get on the board. And here are a few of my favorite dismounts. All right, so now for tip number 8, try your best to maintain your flow whenever you're on your board. Whenever you step on your board, the longer you can stay on it and keep doing tricks without falling off, the better it's gonna look. So some things that you can work on, if your board is facing the wrong way after you do a trick, rather than having to stop and get off of your board to rotate it back around the right way, learn how to do a shove it to get your board facing the right way again. If you come up to a small gap or a curb, learn how to roll over it or jump over it so that way you don't have to stop and pick up the board with your hands. Another simple strategy that you can use to stay on your board longer would be to just focus on doing tricks that you have a higher success rate with while you're doing a line, rather than trying to do only tricks that are at the very top of your ability level. Remember, as cool as it is to land really hard tricks or ones with really complicated names, sometimes it can be even more awesome to just land a simpler trick with more confidence and finesse. Now, while we're on the subject of flow, another strategy that'll add a bunch of style to your lines is mixing up your tricks so that your lines don't become too repetitive. One place that I've seen this issue happen a lot is on the mini ramp, where whenever you're first starting out, it's really easy to just keep your line going with rock to fakies and fakie tail stalls over and over again. As you start to put in more time on your board, try to challenge yourself to master a big list of tricks so that way you always have something new to pull out of your bag that's just as easy for you to do, and it'll allow you to keep varying up whatever's coming next in your line. All right guys, so before I go, I want to mention that above all this stuff, make sure you keep skateboarding fun. If you're trying to make a sponsor me tape or compete in a tournament, yeah, these little things matter. And some of us are just kind of hardwired to enjoy the grind of getting all these little things just exactly right. But if you're not that type of person, feel free to just ignore all the stuff I just talked about and don't let anything get in the way of you getting out every day and getting on your board and having a great time. Other than that, I hope you guys are all doing great. I'll see you in the next video, and remember, never stop improving.